know. So we were looking at flowers, vases, or vases, however you want to pronounce it.
What is the proper term?
I think it's vase. I think. My mother would know.
What about vase water?
I have no idea.
Remember that Grown Ups movie? Have you ever watched the Grown Ups movie?
Yeah.
Where he's like, it's vase.
It's vase, right. So anyway, here we are looking at these beautiful things, and a thought crosses my head. And I won't tell you that thought, but you remember it. You said we look like the perfect happy couple.
Yeah.
You know, shopping for homewares for our new home together with our adopted daughter.
Right.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Lucy's like, I love this vase.
Yeah, we handled quite a bit in a beautiful shower curtain.
Yeah.
That looked like the new backdrop.
Yep.
So I need to ask you a question. It's been on my mind, and it's a tough one.
Okay.
Have you ever shit your pants?
Am I supposed to answer this?
No, I would rather you didn't.
Only one time. I've actually probably done it more than once, to be honest.
Well, I'm not talking about the little, and there it is, it just kind of escapes. Or, you know, you think it's just going to be a little bit of gas, a little fart coming out, and you end up staining your underwear.
Yeah. I don't think Mandy will ever watch this episode.
God, I hope not.
She doesn't watch a lot of these, but she definitely knows I shit the bed once.
I hope she doesn't, because she already doesn't value me as a human being, I don't think yet.
She doesn't value you.
She doesn't value me. She hasn't validated my feelings in life or anything like that. But anyway.
Have you validated hers?
I don't even know how.
There you go.
I'll just validate her as a human being who's married to my good friend.
It's funny, but it's sad. You know, it's so tough, couples, right? Like, who takes the lead? And I think sometimes, like, it sucks that, like, as a man, you're supposed to take the lead. But it's like, I don't even feel like a leader. You know, like, how am I supposed to lead the house when I can't even lead my own damn self?
Very true.
So
sometimes I don't want to lead. Sometimes I let my girlfriend lead.
Yeah.
But the thing about it is, then we start getting into questions like, where do you want to go eat tonight? Oh, just whatever you want, babe. It's all up to you. I want you to be happy. And they just kind of sit there and look at you blankly. You're the one who wanted to go out to eat, not me. What are you hungry for? More silence. I don't know, give me some choices. That kind of thing. So sometimes letting your partner lead can backfire on your ass too.
Well, 100%, because, I mean, from what I'm listening to for Garrett, you're supposed to be the man. You're supposed to be the man, and the woman wants to be taken care of. And she wants to be able to take her masculinity down and be feminine. But we don't put women in a role to be feminine anymore. We put them in a role to be masculine, right? Because we as men are too scared to be masculine, because then we think that we're going to be judged by them, or they're going to say we're toxic, or blah, blah, blah. So then the whole balance of the whole thing's messed up. And that's this whole thing that he's going over. And I think that's kind of cool, because it is a cool concept, because it's always like, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want? Blah, blah, blah. I'm looking, and you look at it from a point of view like you're looking at it for their feelings. And in a sense you are, but it's like women want a man, right? I mean, that's the whole point of a relationship. Women want a man for a certain purpose.
Or a woman.
And a woman wants a man for a certain purpose. But I don't think a woman wants a man for her to have to be the man.
Oh, yeah. Because then you're just raising a child.
And I think that for a long time in Mandy's relationship, I played that role. Like, I didn't want to be that. Like, even in the gym, I do that. I'm scared to be the leader because of kind of like what we talked about. Like, in my mind, I feel like if I'm acting like a leader, that I'm acting superior to people. And I don't want to be superior to people. But then again, at the same time, this is my role. So how do you balance that where it's like, I want to respect you. I want this to be a good environment. I want us to grow and have fun. But then, like, you know, how do I push you as a leader? How do I get you to the next level without acting superior to you? How do I get so-and-so to the next level? How do I treat Mandy without being toxic, but I still want to be a leader. I still want to be a man. And sometimes that's a tough thing to figure out.
Yeah, it is. So before we get into it, I already know kind of about your shitting yourself story, but we're talking about Mandy's feelings. How does she feel about that?
So the funny thing is the room that we're filming the podcast in right now. This is the first time this used to be our bedroom, and this is the experience where I shit myself in the bed right over there. I'll never forget it because it's when Derek ruptured his nut. So this is like this whole week. So this is how this week played out. Like Monday, I bought Derek's ticket to go to Abu Dhabi to compete. So there's the Abu Dhabi trials in California, and I was doing the adult blue belt because if you win, you get a trip to Abu Dhabi. So I did the adult instead of the masters. Well, the ticket was like $60. So I bought Derek a ticket to go too. And he was going to do the masters, and he would have won. Like he was a masters white belt that would have annihilated the masters division.
Sure.
And he's playing spider guard, and this kid knee cuts through and hits him right in the nut and ruptures it. And for like 2 weeks, he can't sit down. I mean, it's horrible. Like it's black and it's huge. And
So you actually
no, but he explained it to me. I didn't.
Well, he's dramatic, so it doesn't matter. I'm just kidding, Derek. You're not dramatic. You're under dramatic, if anything.
But so he couldn't go on the flight. I ended up going. I don't know if I got food poisoning. I don't know what sickness I've had, but I've had this happen like 2 or 3 times in my life where I've gotten so sick that I've like thrown up and shit myself to the point of nothing.
Right.
Like I had it happen when I taught that seminar that weekend that you went to.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I shit blood and
I
threw up
that.
and shit
That's
up all
great
night.
that you're talking about that so freely. I don't think most people don't want to know that you were shitting blood.
Well, you know,
I
I don't like, you know, the thing that I do like about Garrett, and I think the thing that I want to get to as men is like that we just speak truth, and it sucks, but like we all go through stuff. Like I'm sure there's stuff that's happened to you that like I wouldn't want to, you know, understand, but like I would have never thought of.
Right.
You know, like sometimes we don't think about these things, or they happen to us and we're so embarrassed by them. Like Tristan peed himself one time when he got choked unconscious. He used to never want to know that. No, he used to never want anyone to know that story, and now he's like, oh, whatever. And it's funny in the moment how nerve-wracking or embarrassing things is. And this is good because think about it. Like, think about how many times in your life you get so nervous or embarrassed going into a situation, and then a month later or a year later, you're like, why? Why was I nervous? Or why did that scare me? Like, we're all humans. Like, we all shit the bed. You know? Like,
right. Well, my story is totally different because I really don't have any excuses for it. I hadn't been sick. I've always been blessed with a rapid metabolism, so that's always great. So I was leaving work. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. There was nobody around other than one other supervisor. And her office was all the way down in the basement. So I was heading out the back door. I'm like, man, you know, I need to take care of this real quick, you know. So I couldn't find a bathroom. This place was old and huge. It's the old Veterans Hospital in Indianapolis, up near Speedway. And it's old, and it's haunted, but that's another story. And so I go down there, and I'm like, man, where's the nearest bathroom? I really got to go. So she says, all the way down this hall to the left, about 50 yards up on the right. And
50 yards.
Oh, yeah. This place was huge, huge.
You walk a football field, and then you walk another football field.
Exactly, yeah.
Then maybe you can shit.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm walking up to the bathroom door. I got my key out. And, man, I tell you what, I'm doing the dance bad. I'm just barely keeping
I've been there
together.
many times in the car.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I think we all have. So I hit the key, and, man, I just don't make it. You know, and I'm not talking about, you know, a little handful of shit or anything like that. Dude, I punished my draws like a fucking 2-year-old that got into a can of chili, man. And let's just say that the only other person in this hospital happened to open the door to the bathroom right as I was trying to get myself together. I'm standing there buck-ass naked in the sink, washing my pants out. I've already thrown my shoes in the trash, my socks, my underwear. And I thought I was going to have to get rid of my shirt because, I don't know how it came up all over my balls and stuff. I just can't fathom now how all this happened.
How old were you?
Right. But the guy that walked in was the only janitor in the building that night. And he happened to choose my bathroom to clean at that moment. He opened the door, and I shit you not, no pun intended. He took one look at me. He could tell by the smell something wasn't right. And he looked on the floor, and he looked back up at me, and he goes, I'll come back later. And he turns and shuts the door. So here I am walking out of the building with literally a pair of pants on, no underwear, no shoes, no socks, T-shirt that's half wet as well. And I get out to the car. Fortunately, I always carry an extra pair of clothes. So I'm like, you know what? I stripped down there right in the parking lot, put on my fresh clothes. I left my T-shirt and the scrubs right there in the parking lot and drove home. Now, I've told this story 1,000 times. And, of course, you're kind of boring and dry, so you don't understand how truly
I'm a robot?
Yeah, exactly, a robot. But my kids, they always want me to, hey, Daddy, tell me about the time you shit your pants. So, and I still get teased.
My family likes the shit the bed story now.
Well, it's almost like a coming of age when you really shit yourself. But you got to do it good. You got.
I think I was like 35 or something. I don't even know. 34?
I was in my 40s, but it got up my back. I'm so embarrassed to even tell that story. I shouldn't even do it.
It's funny because kids do that. You know, Mandy, when we had Lucy, she's like, oh, yeah, you know, when you change these diapers, like, they can do this. And I'm like, and then I remember the first time she did, and I was like, how in the world did it get to your head?
I know. Richie was that way, too, man. He could shit up his back, his front, down his legs. Man, he was a champ.
He was a champ.
He was a champ.
So what's the name of this episode?
We are going to talk about... yeah, exactly, right. Which kind of ties into what we're going to talk about, because how many times do we shit the bed in our life, you know?
A couple.
A couple. I'm in the hundreds at this point. But I want to talk about the struggles of a young man. And when I say young man, I don't mean anybody in particular. But I do want to talk about Jude a little bit. And the reason I want to do that is because, well, I'm his father, and I watched him struggle as he grew from, and I would say probably 6 years old on, and watching him develop, go through the problems that he had with mental health, and those sorts of things, you know, and the things that I did to try to help him, versus what works best, and, you know, things that I found that helped him through those tough times. And it was tough sometimes. It really, really was. But
I also want you to add what you think might have contributed to some of the damage.
Oh, it was all me.
You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, but it's because it's like, you know, we can talk about that stuff, but it's like I see a lot of the damage that I've caused Lucy, you know? And it's like if we can start to, like, look at that now, even now that could heal so much inside the child.
Sure.
You know, I don't know if he'll watch this episode. I don't know.
Oh, he will. He will.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But it's like, it's amazing because I think kids sometimes look at our parents. We look at our parents and we think like, there's this asshole that doesn't care about me. There's this asshole that
completely, that
all they want to do is control me, manipulate me. And we don't look at it from the point of view that like genuinely we're human too. Like we don't want them to have a bad life. You know, when I tell Lucy things like I'm just trying to protect her. It's not that I want her not to be friends with this little girl. I'm just like, look, I just know if you're friends with this little girl, you're going to go down this path possibly that can cause a lot of issues in your life. And I can see the patterns that you're starting to form right now at kindergarten that I can't imagine what you would be if you continued that path. Right. You know, but kids can't see that in the moment. We can't see in the moment that as parents we're trying to protect them. So I'm just saying I want to hear both sides.
Well, and I kind of get that in the younger ages, and I really want to kind of focus on adolescent years and how they think, to the best of my knowledge. I mean, granted, I was an adolescent. I don't remember a whole lot of it because I'm older than shit. But I do work with a lot of adolescent kids, you know, in my current job. So, and have been for, almost 15 years now. So I have a lot of insight. Now, I'm not a professional. Now, I'm a professional as far as my license is concerned and how I conduct myself. But really, once you get into medicine, if you have a license, it's more of a license to learn. They set you up in school to, have this nice foundation and everything. But once you get into it, whatever specialty, it's a license to learn more shit all the time. So I really kind of threw myself into mental health because I was just looking for something different. And the first, I got to quit saying, that was my goal that I've said like 5 times. My mind is counting.
We're on episode 3, we're just growing.
I know we are. We're getting better.
For sure.
The last episode,
we got a background
banging.
now.
I know. I
Got
love
mics
it.
that are better now, hopefully.
I love it. I love it.
We're rising up in life.
That's right. So, if I'm talking about my childhood, just a little bit to kind of tie it and segue into others, I think that if they had the kind of adolescent mental health services, which, as we've talked about before, is a growing field. How would you say? It's been underprepared. I think there's a lot of growing that needs to take place, a lot of things that don't work. We didn't have any of those kinds of things when I was, an adolescent. I had a lot of depression, suicidal thoughts, things of that nature when I was younger in elementary school, and it just got worse as I progressed into an adolescent. Being an adolescent is horrible. I think you have two groups. You have the ones that are just, in a way, destined to struggle. Now, whether that be because of genetics or who your parents are, versus some parents have these wonderful kids that respect them, love them, don't mind spending time with their family, make great grades, star athletes or not. Maybe they're just nerds like you. Damn, that's like number 7. God, I gotta quit that. I just made noise on the mic, probably. 8.
You struggling over
I
here?
am, because now I just want to keep saying it because I get stumped. So,
I think the big thing, right, if you want me to help a little bit,
please do.
is we went from a species of survival to a species of not needing to be survival, right?
Ooh, I like that.
So at one time we had this element in our life where we had to fight, kill, hunt, build to survive. Well, that doesn't necessarily need to take place anymore. Like, for the most part, any human doesn't have to wake up and try to go hunt their food for the day. They don't have to go try to build some of their house for the day so that they don't have to die to the winter. We live not only in an era now where we don't have to survive, but now we have so much technology and so much instant gratification at our hands that, like, we battle so much to figure out what our purpose is. And I think that's where all these mental healths are starting. You didn't get a chance when back in the day to, it's like, look, you can sit here and cry about whatever you want to cry about, but you're going to die tonight when winter comes. You're going to die tonight if you don't build this shelter and the lion decides to eat you. You're going to die tonight if you don't sit here and defend your family from Great Britain coming over. There's all these different periods in time that, like, you didn't get to think about, oh, you know what? I don't know what my purpose is. I hate my life. Like, oh, I can't get ahead. Now, even in, like, the economy is crazy right now. Like, you have to make, it's like the first time ever in, like, so many years, 20, 30 years, or in history, where, like, the income that you have to make to get approved on a house, it doesn't even line up, right? Like, you have to make 10 times more money. You have to make $120,000 just to be able to buy an average house today.
Sure.
And the average income doesn't even match what it requires to buy the average house by even close. So, like, it's insane.
That's a different world.
The amount of trying to figure out what your purpose would be in today's world. And then if you don't get anywhere, then you're like, it sucks.
Well, let me ask you a question. In your opinion, what do you think is the largest contributing factor to adolescents in trouble? And when I say that, I mean excessive drug use, runaway, self-harm, or suicide, if you'd like to go that far.
Because I can't tell you what anybody else's is. But here's what I can tell you that I'm seeing in Lucy. Okay? And it's sad that I have to own this truth. And Mandy will have to own this truth. Okay? But it's us. And the reality of that is I see Lucy saying, I want to go to the park. I want to go for a walk. I want to snuggle you. I want to play this board game with you, Daddy. I want to play this video game with you. I want to play Barbies with you. I want to, right? And it's like, in a minute, I'm tired. I've worked all day. In a minute, I'm, like, I don't want to play Barbies. It's not my thing. She's playing Fortnite with me now. But it's like, how many parents are sitting here. You know, I don't have a phone, but it's like, yeah, I'll get to you in a minute. You know? Yeah. And or how many times when a kid's coming home and they're saying, so and so did this and so did that, and you're like, yeah, well, this is how you need to act and this is how you need to be and blah blah blah. But you're not sitting there listening to your child. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the one thing that I'm trying to work on with Lucy, is not controlling her, because that's how my dad did with me. My dad never sat down and listened to me. My dad never sat down and said, how are you feeling right now? What's going through your mind? What's going through your heart? What do you love? What do you not love? You know, last night or 2 nights ago, I sat in bed with Lucy and I said, what are you grateful for? She said, I don't know, getting a toy today. I said, that's the only thing you're grateful for, is you got a toy today. She's like, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, there's so many different levels of gratitude. You know, who teaches their kid? What parent right now is sitting down with their kid in bed, asking them what they're grateful for? How does gratitude work? What are you feeling? What are you thinking? Why are you upset? Okay, I understand you're jealous because so-and-so got a present. That makes sense. I don't think parents are connecting with their kids on a level that's giving their kids true peace and true comfort to actually open up and be the person that they want. So what do? They hide and they say, I'm fine. Just like you say, in a minute, right? And then next thing you know, you don't have a child anymore. And now you have a child who's connecting with a friend because they feel closer to that friend. Now that friend is hanging out with that other friend who's into drugs, and they just want to be part of that friend's life.
Yeah.
And then you're like, how did I lose my child? It's because of that kid. It's not that kid. It's you. You lost your child. And that's a hard reality of what I'm trying to see every day with Lucy.
Right. I had very similar experiences with, well, really all my kids. I think I remember days, like you said, hey, Dad, I want to go outside, or come play this game with me. Very similar, where, Jude asked $1,000, come hold the pads for me. Whatever it was that they wanted. A lot of times I made excuses. I'm tired, or no, I got to go and change the oil in the car. Putting all those things at the forefront rather than putting them at the forefront. Now, I will say this. I think I made that mistake more with Daniel, my oldest. He's 26 now.
How old were you when you were raising him as an adolescent?
He was 5 when I got into his life, and I was about 33 probably.
Okay.
So the first kid is always the test.
Well, for sure. And you're still a kid.
I'm still a kid.
Well, you're still a kid when you're raising, you think about it. If it's your first kid, even
Mentally.
though I was 35 when I raised Lucy, it wasn't until I had Lucy that I was like, I got to grow up.
I think so, for sure. I made those mistakes with Daniel either way. I think that I forced him to do things that I thought were good for him. And in the end, I think he held on to a lot of those things. There were a lot of things that I still look back on that he said that I've done that I still can't wrap my head around why he feels that way. And I think that's the hardest part, but I learned lessons from him and moved that over to Daniel, to Olivia, to Richie. Now my 2 youngest kids, they're kind of, you can ask them what's wrong. What's bothering you today? You seem kind of, out of sorts. You're not your normal self. And 9 times out of 10, I get, no, I'm fine, Dad. Or if they are and they're wanting to admit it, I get, I don't know, which is a common response to kids when you ask them, how you doing? How, are you okay? What's going on with you? What's bugging you? And we get the I don't know a lot, especially when they get a little bit older and they start struggling with that transition from being a child to slowly becoming adult and learning the hardest lessons in life, I believe, at least for me, was those adolescent years. I didn't, I lived in a fantasy world. I would constantly do the opposite of what my parents wanted. I would go out at a younger age, 16, is when I started messing around with some alcohol or drugs. It scared me up until that point, and then I felt like I had to have something. and everybody else was having a great time escaping, and I wanted to be part of that. So that really kind of set me up for an off and on near lifetime use of different kinds of substances. So I think doing that at a young age affects your mind. I think that your mind and your brain, your maturity, it's just not coming together yet. So instead of struggling with these things that are hurting you, and maybe trying to open up to your mom and dad, a counselor, whoever, I think kids see a lot of times, like you said, they see their parents uh, drinking alcohol on the weekends to unwind. And I think that has a lot to do with it as well. But their brains aren't set up to be able to handle that. Um, and I also believe we talked a little bit about this last time. The whole we call it the circle of abuse. This is more. I don't know, it's a cycle. I wouldn't know what to call it off the top of my head, but it is a cycle, and I think you need to break that. I think
Garrett calls it the loop.
Yeah, you've used that. I've heard you say that before.
Where
Your cosmic
whatever
loop
it is you're stuck in this cosmic
Right,
loop and you can't get out of it.
Exactly. So I think what is the word? I didn't help stop that. I'll just go that way instead of trying to find big words because I'm an idiot. So I looked for ways to stop that, and it finally landed on Jude and Olivia and Richie. Even they're not perfect kids, but we are close. I can't think of any other relationship other than maybe with my girlfriend that I feel that way about. And it started, I think, with Jude primarily when he was probably 2, 3, 4. Been so long ago now that I started noticing certain patterns of behavior. A lot of hyperactivity, having panic attacks at a very young age, like 8 and 9 and 10. We went to a concert that he wanted to see. We couldn't even stay for the entire concert because Jude just got so anxious of all the people there and all this hyperactivity feeding into his brain, and it would just totally overstimulate him. And we got to go. We wouldn't understand why. Understanding those emotions of a kid, that is so hard. They don't know either. That's why they say, I don't know all the time. They don't know.
Yeah.
Parents don't accept that answer. I can't tell you how many times my mother or my dad would say, well, you have to know. You have to know something. We didn't. They don't. If they come from any kind of a broken home where there's lots of issues and it's not stable, that I don't know is going to be huge. It's going to be huge. So let me tell you a big story that will actually a short story, and everybody's heard it. But in my view, how I look at this whole problem, comes this story will kind of set it up for you. So we're talking about a baby elephant.
Okay.
In the circus. It's just, a little bitty thing, weighs a couple 100 pounds or whatever baby elephants weigh.
Probably more than 100, but
Yeah, you're more than likely right. So they take this small cable and they tie it around this baby elephant's ankle, and it's connected to a post. As time goes by, the elephant gets bigger, stronger, more mature. However, they don't ever have to change that little metal cord or cable to a full-length, heavy-duty gauge chain. That elephant has been conditioned to not try to escape because there's no way. Its whole life it's known one thing, that cable is the only thing that's holding him back. So basically what that says is, we learn how things are supposed to be or how we perceive things are supposed to be, and we carry all these problems into adulthood. And once we start using drugs or we start manipulating or living piss poor lives just to try to escape all this pain, all this garbage that we went through in childhood and adolescence and even in the young adult, I think that's a good way to look at it. We don't know that cord is so tiny. We're adults now. So I say this to people: instead of running, instead of losing yourself and going out all the time and getting shit-faced, whatever it is you're doing, some people it's sex, some people it is drugs, some There's all kinds of things people do to escape. But this is what I say. Turn around for once in your life. Turn your ass around. Look that son of a bitch and problem right in the eye. And if you really look at it long enough, you're going to see it's just a little cable that's holding you back. And you're big enough and you're strong enough. Just pull your leg away, snap it, live a different life. That's when that moment can occur. And a lot of people, if they do turn around, have a look at what they're running from and start deciding they're not going to be afraid. I did the same thing. It took me way too long in life, and I feel like I wasted so much of my life, and I'm pissed about it. So I'm going to do my best to live now and be a better father and not be afraid to turn around. And I think that's one thing that Jiu doesn't do real well. He has no clue what humility is, which is fine. He's 19, getting ready to be 20. He's really not supposed to, I don't think. I don't think they're capable at that age of understanding humility.
Yeah.
Jiu doesn't like to turn around. Now, he says he does, but to actually get that mental turnaround and look at everything that's happened to you, all these things that you drag with you, and the memories of how painful it was back then, is still fresh in your mind, and you're associating that with a child's mind, with that part of your mind that has refused to grow up, doesn't understand how freeing it can be to accept all the problems, your responsibility. Cool. Right. Well, maybe it's not cool or not, but I still think fear is the basis. Fear is the basis of so many things.
100%.
But man, if you just let that child look back and apply your mature adult mind to it, some things just aren't worth running from anymore. I still do it sometimes, and I have to catch myself lying to myself in the mirror. That was one thing that got me through. I'm not going to lie to myself in the mirror today. So I tie that story in. I think it kind of sets up the understanding, I would hope, of what it's like to bring those things into adulthood and not having dealt with it at a younger age. I think that's why we have so many kids that are suicidal, that don't know who they are, and have so many suicidal thoughts, plans laid out, rebellious, attack their mom physically. Man, there are some cases I've seen that are horrific. Kids that will never be able to function again and live in a regular home life because everything that's been dealt them, sexual abuse, physical abuse, exposed just to horrible things in their life, they bring this, they don't know how to get out of it. And it is so sad. And most of them we can't fix. There's another idea that I have that we'll go over here in a little bit, about how we can fix some of those things. But so there's a good setup. What's your take on that?
I agree completely with what you're saying. I just want to let you talk because Mandy said last time that I interrupted you too much and I took over the show too much.
Yeah, it's my show, bitch.
So, I'm just the concept of the elephant and the rope is exactly, okay, and all these things I can only do looking from my life. Mm-hmm. So we have what happens to us as a child. Mm-hmm. And you can't look at it just from the perspective of the kids that are super damaged, super abused, sexually abused, mm-hmm. physically abused.
Right.
Even the low, what we don't even understand is because those cases are big, mm-hmm. right? But there's also a huge case out there where kids are just neglected and they don't even understand, they don't have, think about the parents that they work all day and then the kid goes to daycare all day and then the parent gets them for 10 minutes at night and they don't know why, they don't understand or know their child. There's so many levels, and it sucks because it is the world that we live in. It's not necessarily the parents. The parents are just trying to survive, working whatever jobs that they're working and doing the best that they can. Because in a perfect world, it's like I told Mandy the other day. I said in a perfect world, it sucks what these kids get as teachers today. Because if it was correct and we weren't sending money all over the place and we were what America should be, these teachers would be paid good money, okay? Mm-hmm. And they would have 2 or 3 teachers that love their job, that show up for their job, to listen to these children, to be involved with these children, and to inspire them to become what they could potentially be in the world.
But it gets harder. And I'll tell you why it gets harder. Teachers, for what they're paid in the public school system, is disgusting.
That's what I'm saying.
Disgusting. So in that, because they're making...
They hate their life. They hate their job. They don't want to be there.
That's not all of them. Now,
So here's the thing. I went and read at Lucy's school yesterday. And I hope that her teacher doesn't watch this ever. But she doesn't... For a kindergarten teacher, it's not the person. She might make a okay high school teacher. But for a kindergarten teacher, you know, I want someone sitting in there on the floor with them, inspiring them. You know, I read this book to them. And afterwards, I complimented the kids on how good they were and how awesome they were. And they lit up. And I realized in that moment, you know, Lucy, she gets that every day. But, you know, we live in a poor community. It's not a very rich community. And I could see in those kids that they don't get that. They don't get that, hey, I appreciate you. Hey, you're doing good. Hey, you know, like, where they're actually looked at as a human. It's go here, do this, sit there, don't talk, don't do this, you know? And it's like they're killed from a little age. So it's putting that rope on that leg. And it's starting in school. And then the parents can't be involved. So to me, it's like, if things are right, let's not send $1 trillion overseas to somebody else. Let's send $1 trillion to our teachers.
Don't get me started on that.
You know, so I know we're not going to go into politics, but this is the concept.
That's not politics, man.
Right. The thing is like, we need to build frickin' America. We need to take care of Americans, not anybody else. I'm tired of taking care of other people. We can't even take care of ourselves.
True.
We're paying over 50% in tax. And everything that you live up to right now, it's like 50% of your money goes to the government. And it's sad. And you're just trying to survive as a human so that you can be involved with your child. And you can't even... I mean, when I look at the last 4 years, we used to have game nights. We used to have get-togethers. We can't do that anymore. It's like I got to work 5 jobs right now. I got to figure out how to have all these different academies just so that I can have...
Well, it's not 5 jobs.
Well, I mean...
It's just one job with lots of avenues.
I'm teaching 16 times a week.
Well, that's just one job. That's not 5 jobs.
3 academies.
Well, it doesn't matter. It's all the same.
The app.
What?
I'm trying to build the app, 3 academies, our podcast, plus trying to create the social media presence and still be present and actually show up for your family. You know, and Mandy, she's working all the time, and then when she's coming home, you're like trying to balance having some time for yourself and being present in your kid's life. And it's like, you know, and you could probably find it. I mean, I guess if we just went from 3 a.m. to midnight every night, you know, and you got 3 hours of sleep, and you could figure out how to function like that as a human.
Oh man, that would be great.
I mean, you could get somewhere with it. But to get back to what you're asking, so that I didn't get so far off with my ADHD, we put ourselves in a box. Okay, it's not a rope. We put ourselves in a box from a young age. You know, how our parents treat us, how we grow up, the shit that we go through, the problems that we have. We put ourselves in this box. And then we're so terrified to look at that box. Okay, so you have this box, 5,000 pieces of paper in it of damage, of problems. You don't even look at the good shit. You just look at the bad shit. And you put it in that box and you hide it. Put it under your bed and you're like, look, I'm never going to look at that box because I don't like that box. And then what do? You do drugs, you drink, you have sex, you do all these things that take you away from having to look at that box. And then you get 30, 40, 50 and you're like, you know, I keep doing all these things, but I'm not fixing anything.
Right.
I'm not becoming any better. I'm not getting to the person that I want to be. Why? Well, it's because you don't want to look at the box. You don't want to open that box. You want to stay in that box, and you want to live in that box.
Yeah.
Because it's safe.
Unpacking that box is what saved my life.
At 38 years old, I had to unpack that box, and I had to be like, you know what? I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
But it's funny, whether you believe in the Bible or not, you know, my thing that's kind of neat that as I've read the Bible every day and I've kind of like tried to explore it, think about like even the beginning of time from the concept of the Bible and the Garden of Eden, right? And when we eat the fruit and that we start to obtain the sin, okay? As a child, with not knowing anything, it's amazing that, like, to me, the Bible's a code. People say, oh, it's real, fake, da-da-da. I don't care about any of that. It's a code. It's a code, and if you actually start listening to the code, right, it's not about going to heaven. Okay, that's great. Go to heaven. We're not even getting into that topic. Look at the coding. It's a book of coding for how you should live as a human, right?
Makes sense.
You're born into sin. You have no choice. You as a child have no way to avoid it. You can't. Doesn't matter. There's no way that you at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 has any idea how to avoid sin. You're going to take it all in. And you're going to become sinful because you're going to learn fear. You're going to be scared. You're going to learn anger. You're going to learn rage. You're going to learn jealousy. You're going to learn insecurities. All the sin that is real, you're going to obtain as a young child and have no way to deflect it. And then you're going to live with that and put all that in your boxes until you become an adult. And then when you start to understand the code of the Bible, you're going to say, you know what? If I let that go and I face that, now I'm free.
Indeed.
And that's the most awakening thing that I've had in the last year was realizing it's not about going to heaven. I mean, that's where I want to go. But that doesn't, even if you don't believe, look at the coding that you can't avoid the sin that's going to come into your life as a child. And you're going to spend your lifetime either running from it and sedating from it, or you're going to spend your lifetime to the point where you're like, you know what, I need to face this. And as soon as I face this, it frees me. Everything. Salvation.
Sure.
And I could spend the rest of my life on this earth in salvation, or I could spend the rest of my life keeping it in a box and being miserable.
I want everybody to understand that what we are witnessing right now is Chad Michael Hawkins starting his evangelical career.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
And,
I don't.
And here we are.
We
We get to witness the amazingness and the grandiosity and the ego of Chad Michael.
But it's cool. It's a cool concept. Yeah, I like it because every time I tried to read the Bible multiple times in my life, and I'm like, this is stupid. I hate this thing.
You get little things out of it.
And you can, but like when I really started to dive into it in the last year, and I really started to like focus on it and try to understand it, it was like, we look at it from like black and white and this and that, and this is real and that's real, and like gotta live, like Scripture's what killed Jesus. I mean, the people that believe in Scripture are the ones who crucified Jesus Christ.
Okay, I really love you, but you are really just going off.
I know, but I'm just saying, like, take the religion out of it. Okay?
Sure.
Take the religion out of it. Take the believing in God out of it. Look at the code of it. Look at what the purpose of it is.
Look at it for what it is.
Right.
And not
right.
necessarily.
Because I'm not trying to save anyone.
No,
I don't give a shit.
I understand.
I want to save myself. That's it. And try to help others that want to, become better men.
Right.
But like, it is. We have jealousy. We have insecurity. We have anger. And that's not bad. They're not bad, but they plague our soul. They're
heavy.
They're heavy.
They're heavy.
And if it's like, if we don't let go of it, you can't drink your way out of it. You could try, but at the end of the day, you're going to still have to face it. You can do drugs your way out of it, and you could try to do that first, but a lot of times the hole just gets deeper. It's amazing that it's really cool all the way around if you think about it. Like, the more that you try to hide from the sin of your life, the heavier it gets until you face that box. And that's
right.
That's it.
So if we're moving along here, one of the biggest things I think that I made a mistake in, especially with Jude, is, and it's not the worst thing, but it's definitely not something that's going to help him. That helped him. I think it could go either way, just depending on how you handle it. I think I was too much of his friend because I felt like that's what he needed. He needed somebody that he could trust more than his dad, which is really kind of back-asswards to some degree. So over the years, when I started realizing it, and his mom pointed it out several times as well, you can't be his friend. He needs a leader.
Yeah.
He needs a strong man in his life, not necessarily to tell him how he should be living or judging why he has these types of feelings of anger, anxiety, and try to get to the bottom of it. But it is simply for us to live as an example. And I started doing that. With Jude, I feel like maybe I started a little too late. But with my other ones, it's funny. I've become a better parent as each kid gets a little older and I see all my mistakes I made. But I also believe that Jude has a lot of genetic material in his body that said, I get some of this from my dad, and then me in turn, I got more stuff from my dad. So it trickles down. Genetics is absolutely undefeatable. Sometimes it's like a person that is overweight. They're just big people, but they're a lot of them struggle with losing weight. They have to work hard at it. As hard as I had to work to change the way I thought about my kids.
Do you think which is harder, the mental or the physical? Right? So, like, let's say you have an obese person. Okay, the physical part of getting back in shape is going to be hard. But which one's harder, beating the mind or beating the physical?
Oh man, it's the mind, in my opinion, because we already have all these preconceived notions. If you have a weight problem, you've had it more than likely your entire life. Or maybe you start to get a little older and it doesn't, and you just let things go. But again, you've set yourself up for these experiences and memories, and it won't work. I've tried diets, all that kind of stuff. But I don't want to get too far away from what we're talking about. I think that once I realized that I had to defeat things in my mind to help stabilize his and that of my other kids. Once I became more of a father, of course, it wasn't until after he was out of high school that I started really practicing what I preached, because he needed so much more assistance as a safety net. And he knows that, and he admits it. He always knows that no matter what happens, I am the guy that will be there. It does not matter what it is. It doesn't matter how bad it is. But I will be there. He may not always like my response to that, but it's something he's learned to accept. And if anything is wrong with him, I know and I relish in the fact that I will be the first person he calls. My youngest, but depending on what the issue is, if they're in a jam or they're in trouble, something's going sideways, I am the person that they call. They may call their mom for other smaller, emotional issues or motherly type behaviors. And Jude still does the same thing. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Teaching kids how to be in touch with their emotions is...
I think there should be a class on that.
On what?
Teaching kids how to communicate. I think in school, the crap that we teach is dog shit. Mm-hmm. I think the reality of it is you would have so much better if kids were required to like graduate with wrestling or graduate with Jiu-Jitsu, and teaching them how to communicate and talk through their feelings,
right? And
actually be able to communicate. I mean, especially in today's world, like back in the day, that's what you had to do when you didn't have cell phones. But now with how it's sad that we're the most connected that we've ever been, and we're the most disconnected we've ever been.
I know, at the same time.
At the same time.
At the same time.
And it's like, if you had a class that was like, look, you're going to learn how to communicate with each other. You're going to learn how to communicate with an adult. You're going to learn how to talk through your feelings. You're going to learn how to process all these things so that you can actually function better as a human.
Now, social media is another thing that we really didn't hit on, and we won't because, for time's sake, the social media is a huge escapism. It's just my kids.
It's the same thing as doing drugs.
It's
the same thing as doing drugs. It's the same thing as drinking. Yeah. Looking at reels.
Yeah.
Scrolling social media. Mm-hmm. 5 hours leaves you. 3 hours leaves you. You're disconnected from the world. You're disconnected from your truth. You're disconnected from facing what reality you have to face.
Yep.
It might be stronger than a drug.
All my kids are like, if they're in the car with me, they're sitting here watching reels, and I'm like, we're not going to do this. Put your phone away. I like to reach over, like if Richie has his phone, and just go whop, knock it out on the floor. He hates that, but it's funny as hell.
Yeah.
You have to get away from those kinds of things for sure. And social media is probably one of the worst things right now for.
But I think that goes back to us needing to be leaders as men.
I think so.
And I think that I do the same thing, and I think that we need to approach it differently. I think instead of slapping the phone out of their hand, because I do the same thing.
I do that for fun. It's a joke.
I know, but we yell at our kids, right? We're like, put your phone down, you're in the car, or socialize with us, right? Mm-hmm. But then they sit there and they don't talk, And then we sit there and we're like, and then are like, okay, whatever. And then we go back to doing the same exact thing, right? But we are supposed to be the leader. We're the parent. So it's like, okay, look, I know you're on your phone. I know that's great. Let's put it down for a minute, 10 minutes, set a timer. Let's talk. This is where I'm at in my life. Like I really appreciate, like if it's timber, I really appreciate how much work you've put into volleyball lately and how much you've grown and how much you're getting straight A's and, like how do you feel in school? Like us initiating as parents and leaders, the conversation and starting the process is so crucial, I think, because it's sometimes we slap the phone out of our kids' hands or we tell them to stop, right? But then we don't give them anything to start to build off of, right? So that's kind of a scary thing to think about, and that's a good point that I just made for myself.
For the record, I want to clarify, I do not slap Richie's phone out of his hands being a hard-ass dad. It's something that we do to each other as a joke.
Got it, you're a dick. All right. Look, I know you don't do it meanly, because I do it too, jokingly.
My ego is shattered.
But yeah, you know what I'm saying? Like, we do that, and then we don't realize that it's our role to figure out how to lead them.
Right.
And then we sit there and we try to, I do it with Lucy. I'll yell at her, It's like, why am I yelling at a 5-6-year-old little girl that has no fucking clue what she's doing with her life?
Right.
She just wants to watch Fireman Sam,
Right.
And it's like, I take the iPad away from her and I yell at her and she's like, instead of saying, hey, I just want to talk to you. I want to hear what your thoughts are. I want to hear what's going through your head. And I've shut you off so much before, and now I'm going to try to be a better parent. I'm going to try to step up for this one little window, and I don't know why you're not going to open up to me. And then,
I think what I try to do, or try not to do, is when they do put that phone down, I always just kind of tell them a little, just a couple of minutes. Man, work has been really hard, but I'm pushing through. I talk to my daughter a lot about my relationship with my girlfriend. What do you think? You're a young adult female. What do you think she's thinking? And it's not that my girlfriend and I are dealing with anything. That's just how I dig things to get my daughter to talk to me.
Yeah.
Same with Richie. I find subjects, and maybe I start the conversation with, like, he is so turned on into Jiu-Jitsu, just like I am, and I love it so much. So I usually tie a little bit in the beginning, and then we kind of move towards Jiu-Jitsu, and I'll say something like, man, my game is really stinking lately. My cardio is terrible. What do you think? Do I roll okay when you and I are rolling? And then he'll just get going on stuff, and that kind of helps bring about feelings in a different sort of way.
yeah.
It kind of lets me know how he feels about something that's huge in his life. And then he'll tell me about school and how ridiculous some of his teachers are, or how much he hates it, how he just wants to do homeschooling, or, hey, I think I can graduate early this year and knock this sucker out. And I'm proud of those things, but that's what it's taken me. I have to be creative. We've talked about being creative with stepchildren.
You have to be intentional.
Yes, you do have to. Oh, God,
And then here's the sad part is not only do you have to be intentional with your child, you have to be intentional with your partner. And I think that's why we have the disconnect. One, we don't, as men today, want to be leaders. We want them to make the decisions, but we still want to be a man somehow. And then the second thing is we're not intentional with them. We'll come home and we'll love our kids. And we'll walk right past our spouse. We'll ignore them. But if you loved your partner, and you looked at your partner as you looked at your 3-year-old or your 4-year-old or your 5-year-old that you're absolutely in love with, right? Your relationship would grow. But we get so disconnected and so stuck in reels and so stuck in social media and so stuck in alcohol and so stuck in drugs that we're so disconnected that we have no intention because we're existing.
Right.
But we are at 1 hour.
Are we really?
Yeah.
Already?
Yeah.
Should we keep going just a little bit longer?
What time is it?
It's noon.
Okay. I gotta leave at 12:20.
That's fine.
Hopefully this big episode saves.
I hope so too. I really don't have enough what's really funny that I'm just realizing, and I didn't think it. I thought we were going to focus on the problems of the adolescent and what's making them tick and why are they the way they are. All this. So I have two responses to that. I never planned on it going this direction. How the fact is, it's on us.
100%.
And those dads that just decide, I understand that feeling of being overwhelmed as a father. And I think every father at some point, whether it's just a passing thought or if it's like, I'm going to go out for a pack of cigarettes, you know.
And then what's your kid learning from that?
They don't learn anything from it.
They do.
They just
They
learn how to
put that little piece
self-destruct.
in the box and they continue on. Okay, you know what? When my dad doesn't want to face reality, when my dad is too scared to be a man and step up in the relationship for my mom and for us, he steps outside, he smokes a cigarette, steps outside, he drinks some alcohol, sits on his reels for an hour and ignores his family.
What I mean by buying the proverbial pack of cigarettes is going out for milk or a pack of cigarettes and just not coming back.
Well,
that is the absence of strong fathers. This has been said for years. There have been so many studies about it, of how kids are affected simply by the father leaving the house. I think that if the mother is strong enough, I think they can get it done. And I know they can. But do they choose
still going to be a piece in the box that they're going to have to face.
I absolutely. For the mom as well, I wasn't a good enough wife. So my husband left me with, these 10 kids, or maybe it's just one or two.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
For sure.
That is a lot.
All because you don't want to be a man. And, and I'm not, we can go down a whole rabbit hole because there's a lot of toxic. It's not even toxic. It's, there's women that don't show up in the relationship. There's men that don't show up in the relationship.
It is toxic. Anything that causes...
But it's sad because it goes down the long debate of, well, I did this, so you did this, so I did this. You know what I'm saying? And then it becomes like, well, neither person wants to give in. That's where the escalation escalates, and it's like, I'm not getting what I want. I'm not getting what I want. The longevity of, we would have to go down an entire new episode of just couples and relationships.
We're going to do that though.
So, and that's great because it's so hard, and we don't realize that surrendering sometimes is what really actually turns us into the human that we need to. And that ties into exactly what I said with the Bible. Once you surrender exactly what it asks you to do.
You are such a televangelist.
It's amazing how it opens your life up because it's when you're not surrendering that life's so difficult. It is. It sucks. It's like, you know what? I'm a good man. I show up. I do this. I do that. You should appreciate me.
Right. Another area that I think is really important, we can start wrapping it up, is the education system, which we talked about a little bit. This is one thing that I noticed about Jude. I think public schools have this mentality that all the kids that come to school fit in this cookie cutter education system. Jude does not fit into that.
I don't think a lot of kids nowadays do.
There's no variation. The only thing that they have for troubled kids is alternative school. Or I dare you to even talk to somebody. Man, my life is terrible. I've often had thoughts of suicide, even though I know that's not the right answer. Boom. You get 7 days in a mental hospital.
Yeah.
Well,
we're teaching 1920 school.
Yeah.
To 2020 living.
Expecting it to be different.
And it's different now. I mean, it's like I was telling Mandy the other day because she's like, she's on the iPad too much. She's playing video games.
Expect it not to be different. Just want to clarify.
But I'm like, well, how do you know that she doesn't become some coder one day and creates the next greatest app? How do you know that she doesn't grow up and become the greatest first-person shooter person making $1 million like Ninja?
Or an actual shooter.
No. Well, I try to condition her to understand that that's fake. Here's what I'm saying. As parents, we're so programmed, again, set in our ways and our traditions of this is how life was when we were growing up and this is how life should be to make your life better. But we don't even understand we can't even begin to fathom what our child's future is going to be. And we're trying to control them and put them in a box right now at their age. What if she becomes worth $500 million playing a first-person shooter game? Or whatever video game? What if she is playing on her iPad and starts learning how to code? And I know that a lot of kids go down that road and they exist, but it's like we can either choose to guide them and inspire them and they become really good at things, or we can close them off and keep putting them in this box and then they are existing and sedating.
So let's start to wrap this up a little bit. I sat here and I wrote a bunch of notes out.
Bring them next time.
I do. I have them right here.
Well, bring them for the next episode.
So, and I had these 4 or 5 things that would help an adolescent get through. You know what? It's garbage.
Next episode.
It's just garbage.
Yeah.
It's
not garbage, but
it is, because this is what I'll tell you. Every man that's listening right now, the future of your children is up to you. Learn it early. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. We've talked about making mistakes lots of times. Can't be afraid of that. You can't shove that mentality, being afraid to make mistakes, tie yourself to a little cable, or put those feelings in a box. Turn around and face that shit, guys. Turn around, face it, look it in the eye and say, fuck you no more. Fuck you no more. That is what I survived on my whole life, is saying, fuck it. I'm going to keep going. Nothing's going to stop me. And then I said, you know what? Fuck you. I'm winning now. And I think that is a huge key. Man, we got to be strong. We got to figure out that combination.
But we got to realize what strength is. That's where men make a mistake at. Men think being strong is bottling it in.
Yes,
Men
it
think
is.
keeping their mouth shut, not saying what they want to say.
Yes.
And then they blow up in their relationships and they blow up on their kids. And what strength is realizing that inside you are a pussy. Inside you are scared. Inside you are unsure. Inside you are...
That's a little personal. You have to tell everybody I'm a pussy.
It is. It's me. I'm talking to myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can sit here and hide and act macho all I want and go from one relationship to the next or from one life to the next or whatever it is. But, like, at the end of the day, nothing's going to change and the cosmic loop is going to stay the same no matter where you go in your life.
This is true.
Until you realize that that's not being tough.
This is true.
It's actually being a pussy. Right. Being tough is actually doing the thing that you don't want to do. It
is. It's like emotions. Men that say, well, I'm not going to cry. Just that in itself, saying that statement, makes you a coward. Yeah. It's harder to let those feelings out and be a man who's not afraid to feel things, a real man. So this has been a great episode. I love talking about this. I really like the way it came back to us as men and as fathers that hold that key. It was an angle I just, for some stupid reason, even as being a father for 26 years, I don't know why I didn't say, God, it's going to come right back to us again. So
thank you guys for watching.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to get with DJ this week.
Yeah.
I'm going to
see if we can get some guests.
Absolutely. I can't wait for that. Thanks for watching, everybody. Episode 3, Struggles with the Adolescent, which is really struggles about us. We'll see you next time.